Correct.
It's pretty obvious he's a politician. There's a very nice cover to some of it, but to hear it from his, even to hear within Greece the perspective of the EU, also versus the rest of the world. It was really interesting.
Yes.
So thank you.
What else? Okay. Now, what I would like us to do is go back to these scenarios we started playing last time, okay? And I want us to work together of coming to the most likely possible scenario we're going to see over the next 6 months, year, 5 years, even 10 years, okay? And no one of us knows exactly what will happen, but at least if we create these scenarios and we assign some probabilities that we believe, each one of us, then that can be very beneficial to each one of us here, okay? Let me try to summarize what are the possible scenarios that I see. We have talked a little bit about them, and you might come with something completely different, which is fine, okay? Now, we all understand that the major problem we're facing involves the debt. We have seen how much debt we have in the United States and in every other country around the world. And I say that's a problem. Why? Because unless if we believe there is an unlimited supply of capital, then one day we're going to face the crisis. Okay? And what I believe is that there is not unlimited source of capital, which means one day we're going to face reality. We have to solve this problem one way or the other. So let's say, what are the possible potential solutions or scenarios? Okay? First one is we, United States and other countries around the world, decide to reduce the debt we have right now. And they make a decision to correct this problem. Theoretically speaking, this could be possible, right? You become the next president or the next prime minister of another country, and you say, my goal is to reduce debt by 5%, 10%, 1%, but that's what I'm doing. Suppose we do that. Just take as an example United States. What that means for the politicians to do that.
It means people aren't going to love them anymore.
Are they going to win the elections?
No.
We're not.
Eh? Maybe in the history books it will be great politicians because they provide a long-term solution for the country. But for sure in the short term, they're going to face a lot of difficulties. Okay? Roughly, that's something for you to think. But that's a possible scenario. What's the probability you give on that scenario? Put this down.
Very low. I give 0 right now.
Yeah. Okay, you're almost like me. I give 1% chance. Okay, because you never know what happens. Yeah, yes. So you go to the second scenario, which is we'll continue having the same type of debt and even increasing the debt, which that eventually will push one country and then the rest of the countries into bankruptcy. Okay? Of course, this is also not very likely. Why? Because United States cannot go into bankruptcy. Because we can print our needed capital. Maybe now you have heard in the news that the Chinese have started selling the American bonds they have in their hands. Okay? Which means they try to get out of the American debt. And Chinese is the number 2 holder of American debt. Japan is there as well. And then England, Holland. But if these major creditors, the United States, losing faith in holding American debt, where this is going to lead us after that?
In trouble.
Right? If you represent the American government and you start losing the Chinese creditors or the Japanese creditors, still you need to have the money to finance your budget deficits. What can you do as America? And likely so, what if you're Greece or Germany or Italy or France? What would you do? That's another question that I would like you to think in your scenario. And then assign a probability to that particular scenario. Then we go to the third scenario, which is, I am not going as a politician, as a government, to reduce my total debt because I don't want to take my economy into a recession, depression. So I will continue borrowing and spending as a government, and therefore continue providing employment opportunities. Sounds good so far? Yes. However, we don't want to go back to scenario 1 or 2 we discussed earlier. And one way to avoid the crisis is, if at the same time you borrow, you invest as a government the money into your country, but in such a way that the resulting increase in GDP is higher than the increase in your debt. So your debt to income ratio is dropping, although the actual size of debt increases. As a theoretical model, makes sense to you? Probably it's a solution in a theoretical sense, because in reality, in order for you as a government to make the proper investment decisions and allow your government to increase its GDP by a higher percentage, it's a long-term strategy. Do you have the time to do that if you run for re-election in a few months or in a year? Okay? So consider that in your scenarios. So you can say, yes, I like this, but it's very unlikely. Assign a probability into this scenario. Okay? And if we don't do one of the 3 scenarios, what's the next one? The next one is, we're going to find the additional money if the Chinese, the Japanese, the Europeans are selling the American government bonds. We will do that through monetization. I will ask our Fed to keep increasing the supply of money. It's a possibility? Yes, especially for the United States, because we have the ability, without asking permission from anybody, to monetize our debt. of course, that will create new problems, as you have seen the scenarios we have played. Higher inflation, okay, which will have to force you to think of, in that particular scenario, what should I do? Where should I invest my money? Because if you move to hyperinflation, what happens then? Consider your personal life, okay? Your family. Where you rather be? Where would you rather invest your money to protect yourself from that environment? Okay? Think about that. Think about that. And also assign a probability to that particular scenario. Can we continue monetizing our debt forever? Is it possible? Think about that. And then you move to the last scenario, which is, it's about time to restart our economy. And restart by doing what? Have a haircut. Take all the debt we have and throw out 50% of it, or 60%, or 40%. Okay? And start brand new with much less debt. As a government, as a company, as an individual. Okay? That's the model we have discussed here under the name the deflation model. Prices will drop. Okay? The real estate prices will go down. Okay? And of course that creates different sets of opportunities or threats for each one of us here. If you do own your house, you're going to lose something. If you are ready to buy a house, that's a great opportunity for you. If you are 60, 70 years old, start crying. If you are 20 years old, hey, it's happy days ahead. Think about all of these things, okay? Think about all of these things. So, I will have you in, I don't know, 2, 3 groups here. Three groups, okay? And discuss all the scenarios, assign probabilities, okay? But I want you to tell me exactly what you believe will take place here, okay? Consider what the leaders we have here are going to do, either because they care about our economy, they care about you and me, or they care about themselves, because that will explain their behavior. Including your discussion also, if that's what the United States is going to do, what China is going to do, what Europe is going to do, what Russia is going to do. And if that takes place, somebody's going to lose. Cannot be all 4 of them I just mentioned to you come out as a winners. One of them is going to be the loser. Which one? There are going to be new strategic alliances around us. What are the possibilities? Create that scenario too. Okay? And by the end of the day, I hope you're going to write down how you think the United States and the rest of the world will look 10 years from today. Okay? 10 years from today. But you put thoughts into that.
Demos, question for you. And along with that scenario you outlined, is there a scenario that could include deregulation of particular exports to increase our GDP? That way we're not messing with our debt? Or, I don't know, like what would our chief export be that would explode with sales internationally through deregulation?
You can put that, under, for sure, scenario number 2, where we said we'll continue borrowing, but we will make the proper investments so that the overall GDP growth will grow much, much faster. And one way of doing that is what I just mentioned. Focus on specific industries that can help us increase our overall economic growth. Okay, you can propose that there. You scenario. Any other questions? Might help you to. Okay? Trying to force yourself to think, explore all the possibilities. Okay? And that's, you create the future. Assign the probabilities, possibilities. Okay? So we have